A very good morning to you. Welcome to the West Ham Voice. Friday morning, the day after the game against Freiburg on Thursday evening. Um, what a game and what a performance by West Ham United, and also breaking a long-standing English record in Europe as well. As I'm sure you've all heard, the win against Freiburg away was the 17th game unbeaten in a row for an English club. What a fantastic achievement that is. Up until last night, the record for successive games without defeat was held by Don Revie's 1968 Leeds United team and also by Bill Nicholson's Tottenham side in 1972. And who's to say that this unbeaten run won't go on at least throughout this group stage, and who knows, maybe throughout the tournament itself? Okay, granted, I'm getting a bit carried away with myself, but then why not? Look, I recall last season, there were fans who kept telling us just how awful our run of form had been, and that if the club didn't get rid of David Moyes sooner rather than later, not only would we be out of Europe last season earlier than we thought, but would also be heading for relegation. Well, neither has happened. This season, now it's all about how dreary we are, and our footballing style is no good, and the fans can't abide Moyes ball, etc., etc. Yet, as the season progresses, not only are we continuing to do well in the league, we're also doing well in Europe as well. Our players are beginning to gel, and there's so much style in our game that it's helping to grow the confidence of the squad game by game. The lineup itself demonstrated just how serious David Moyes was taking this game. A much, much stronger lineup than even I anticipated, to be quite honest with you. Yeah, I expected players like Fabianski, Mavropanos, Kera, Fornals and Kudus to start, but I certainly didn't expect Moyes to add Agerd, Soufal, Alvarez, Ward-Prowse, Paquetá and Bowen into the mix as well. A really strong lineup, and it showed in the way we played the game. Moyes kept the same 4-2-3-1 formation. He always plays with Soufal on the right. But I wasn't sure what was going to happen on the left side. And at some point, when the team was announced, I thought maybe it was going to be a 5 at the back, but it wasn't so. He had Kera on the left side and Mavropanos partnered with Agerd. Quite astute, David Moyes, to be quite honest with you, because as the season progresses, and what I'm going to focus on a little bit later on after the review of the game, is what sort of teams he's going to be putting out between now and at least the January transfer window. Alvarez and Ward-Prowse were the two holding midfielders, so two pivots in midfield. And then the front four comprised of Fornals, Paquetá, Kudus and Bowen. Fornals, as he has done on many occasions, did a very good job on the left side of midfield, with Paquetá mainly operating in the middle, with Kudus on the left and Bowen up front. But Kudus and Bowen were switching throughout the game. Kudus at some point went up front, with Bowen going out wide. Look, we took the game to Freiburg, who are considered to be probably our most dangerous opponents in this group stage. And I think we did it exceedingly well. And within 9 minutes, we got ourselves in front with a fantastic ball from Jared Bowen on the right, who took a position getting the ball out wide, crossing it into Paquetá, who was a superb bullet header to take us 1-0 ahead. Within minutes, we were almost 2-0 ahead when the disallowed goal wasn't given. Now, quite interesting, it came off a Freiburg defender into the path of Paquetá after Fornals had run it into the 18-yard box. Should it have stood? Well, a bit of touch and go. I'm surprised that the players didn't kind of make a bit more of a noise about that disallowed goal. But anyway, it was a 1-0 up. We were really good. We got into the we had even more chances. Kudus himself hit the post in the first half. Look, with some unfortunate goalkeeping from the Freiburg keeper, we could have been maybe 3 or 4-0 up by half time. But the game after we scored the goal, after that flurry of chances, it kind of settled down. And perhaps we just started to sit a little bit deeper, waiting for another counter-attack. But we had our fair share of chances throughout the game. Now, no changes at half-time. But Freiburg did make one change, and I was surprised that this player didn't actually start. Their Japanese international Doan, who came on the right hand side, and he most certainly changed the game because he started to be quite a nuisance on that side. But we also had a booking, the fifth booking of this season for Alvarez. Four in the league and one now in Europe. Last season, the Mexican picked up something like 16 yellow cards in all competitions, which led to 3 one-match bans throughout the season for him. And the concern is that, of course, if Alvarez picks up a yellow card against Newcastle, he's going to be out of the game against Aston Villa that's coming up after that. So we kind of worry. I mean, he's a fantastic player and a great stalwart in midfield, but he certainly does pick up the yellow cards. Anyway, within 4 minutes, Freiburg were level after a great pass by Doan, which led to Freiburg having at least 2 attempts shot on target, which were admirably kept out. But the bounce back to Shalai, their Hungarian international and their top goal scorer this season, he smashed it into the back of the net. I think it was deserved, and it gave Freiburg a bit of a lift as well. Doan is one of their best players, certainly turned the game in Freiburg's favour. And it was all Freiburg for the next, 10, 15 minutes of the second half. His injection of pace on the right-hand side certainly gave us a lot of problems. But then in the 65th minute, up pops another set piece. James Ward-Prowse, I've lost count of the number of goals he's made for us this season, set up from a corner for Aguirre to power in a second header. 2-1 up. And I won't lie to you, it made it easier for us, like I said, with Noah Atubolu, their keeper, fluffing a few chances. Look, you've got to feel for the 21-year-old goalkeeper. I'm sure at some stage in his career, he's going to develop into an excellent keeper. But fair play to Freiburg manager for having such confidence in him to play him in such an important game. But those several errors that he made certainly benefited us. Our second goal seemed to sort of knock the bit of the stuffing out of Freiburg. And on 70 minutes, Moyes made 2 changes, with Emerson coming on for Kehrer to nullify the threat of Doan. And Soucek came on in place of Fornals, which led Paquetá moving over to the left of midfield and Soucek sitting in the middle. The changes were designed to give us just that bit more stability. And on the 75th minute, Freiburg made several changes themselves to try and get the impetus back into the game. But we were ones that still had the better chances. On 78th minute, we could have made it 3-1, where a great pass to Kudus from Paquetá gave him a great chance, but his right foot shot just went wide. And then straight after that, he was replaced by Benrahma. He went on to the left and Bowen went into his normal berth on the right, with Paquetá moving into kind of like a false number 9 role. On the 88th minute, some absolute sensational play from Paquetá, who had a brilliant game tonight on Thursday night. He played the ball into Bowen's path, but Bowen's shot also went wide. 2 more changes, just the 4-minute stoppage time was announced. Saw Ward-Prowse and Paquetá being replaced by Danny Ings and Divine Mumbama, which was enough to see the game out. Comfortable first half. Much more difficult in the second half, but we got the result we needed. And we have now set, as I've said, the English record where we have gone 17 European games in a row unbeaten. This sets us up nicely for the game against Olympiacos that's coming up. Now, they had an interesting game because they were 2-0 up in their game away to TSC. And they were cruising. They seemed to be cruising to victory. But TSC, the Serbian team, pulled a goal back soon after Olympiacos scored their second. And then they they went level on 90 minutes for the game to draw 2-2. So well done to them. And for me, that seems to suggest, although I'm not going to rest on not resting on our laurels, that should we beat the Greek team in a few weeks' time on the 26th of October, I think that will set us up nicely to win the group. As it stands at the moment, we are 2 wins out of 2 games, 6 points, and 3 goal difference as well. So we're doing pretty well, and it's going to take a lot for any team to displace us. Look, a win in Greece doesn't secure a qualification, but it will certainly go a long way to securing our group, our stages in the next round of this competition. Last season in the Europa Conference, the opposition we played maybe made it a little bit easier for David Moyes to mix his team selections around, and that should have been the case in the first two cup competitions that we played in this season. If you remember, TSC David Moyes did a bit of a change around in team selection, and he also did it for Lincoln as well. But unfortunately, I think some players who were given a chance to sort of stake a claim in the first team. I think one or two of them unfortunately fluffed it a little bit. As you know, we were lucky to get a win against Lincoln. They seemed to be pretty good against us, but we were reliant on the one goal that was scored by Thomas Soucek from a set piece. And the TSC game itself didn't start off very well, if you remember that, where unfortunately Angelo Albona, a stalwart. Please don't get me wrong. I'm not criticising the player, but his error led to TSC going a goal up in that game. And I think that's maybe given a few concerns to David Moyes about what sort of team he's going to be forward from here on in. I think maybe, as we've seen in the past, David Moyes has picked two very different teams for cup competitions and for the Premier League. And I think he was hoping to do the same thing this season. But it just hasn't quite worked out, which is why I guess he put out such a strong team against the side that we played last night against Freiburg, where I think he played a few more players that he would normally pick for Premier League games. I think he was kind of forced. His hand was forced into having to pick more players than he would have liked to. And there's a sort of a question mark over one or two players in the West Ham side at the moment. I think Ogbono's mistake has certainly caused a bit of doubt in David Moyes' mind. I think Maxwell Cornet, he's been given an opportunity to play against Lincoln, and he really didn't sort of pull it off. Connor, I've forgotten his name. You know him right there. Has also sort of not really been in the mix, to be quite honest with you. And also, Saeed Benrahma has not really been doing it this season. Saeed Benrahma has been a little bit sort of out of form. And as we know, Danny Ings, unfortunately, is also not sort of pulling up any trees at the moment. So when it comes to team selections, I think David Moyes has got concerns. You know, with the likes of Cornet, Benrahma, Danny Ings not really taking their opportunities, I think we're sort of going back to the situation we were in the 21-22 season, where Moyes' team selection was restricted to around about 16 players out of the total squad. And is the same likely to happen again? If so, I hope we don't make the same error by not adding to the squad again in January. If David Moyes is ending up relying on maybe out of 16 players out of the squad he currently has, I think that's going to be a concern in terms of how many games the players have, more chances of getting injured, etc. And I think that will be a massive concern for David Moyes. Maybe. Quite possibly, the likes of Cornet, Benrahma, Danny Ings will start finding some form anytime soon. But I know what you're going to say. A lot of people will say, well, look, if you're not playing regularly, then how are you going to be able to show any form, any consistency? But the games that were played, that most of these players were played in, sort of Lincoln and the first game against TSC in the Europa League, they should have been, I don't want to call them easy. No game is easy. But they should have been the likes of Danny Ings, the likes of Saeed Benrahma, the likes of Maxwell Cornet should have demonstrated their capability, how good they are, in order to give Moyes that confidence in them. And I fear that with David Moyes, he's got his usual 11 starters in the league, and then he's got a number of players beyond that, like Kudus, Mavropanos, Fornals, who every time he's being asked to play does extremely well. So Moyes has got that nucleus of 11, plus he's got about another 3 or 4 players on top of that. With Mavropanos in defence, Kehrer in defence does well. We know that the goalie is Fabianski, can do a job for us as well, and a few midfielders I've already mentioned, Fornals, Kudus, etc. But then after that, what then? is David Moyes going to be faced with a situation where he's going to have to keep using the same players over and over again? Now, I think he wants to do rotation, squad rotation. I think he wants to utilize all the players that he has in the squad. But if the players have not been producing, there's a doubt in his mind, and that may lead to some fatigue in the players playing over and over again in cup competitions, as well as in Europe, as well as in the league. So what will he do? It's going to be interesting to see what sort of team he puts out for the game against Olympiacos. I dare say, given that we're playing away again, I think Moyes is going to put out a strong team there again. We've got Arsenal coming up in the League Cup. I dare say he's going to put out a strong team in that as well. So you're going to probably see the same players being used over and over again. Fine if that's the case to get us through the League Cup. Fine if that's the case to get us through Europa League group stages. But what then? I'm kind of hoping that I think we will get through the Europa League group stage. I'm hoping that we'll beat Arsenal at home under the lights. I think that'll be a superb game. And I think we've got a very good chance of beating them. So when we get through those games and we're leading into the Christmas fixtures, etc., what I'd really like to see is that we do strengthen the squad again in January to give us that extra impetus to take us through the second half of the season. That's where we were of went wrong 122 season, where we got to the January window. We were doing extremely well, both in the league and in Europe, etc. And then we faltered because we didn't strengthen in that window. Let's hope that same thing doesn't happen again, because if it does, then we're going to be relying on the same players over and over again. And it may not be enough for us to get a decent position in the Premier League and through the cup competitions that we're in. Right, that's it. I hope you enjoyed the show. Short and sweet. And I'll be back again on Sunday with the game against Newcastle. Massive game coming up. They did extremely well in the Champions League, didn't they, against PSG? So they're going to be buoyed by that. But we should be buoyed by what we've done. We're English record breakers with the number of games unbeaten in Europe. It's a fantastic effort. Well done to David Moyes for navigating the team through those games. One would argue, yeah, but we didn't have a lot of competition in Europa Conference League last season. That's why we managed to break the record. But you can only play who you have in front of you. And I think we can easily, or not easily, I'll take that back. I think we should be able to get through the group stage of the Europa League unbeaten. And then what happens then? The knockout stages. If we continue to win or continue not to get beaten, we can go even further in that. Who knows? Another final coming up? We never know. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all very soon.